movement, grunge. While the movement didn't turn out to be as long-lasting as many figured it would, what it packed into a 4-year period, 1990 through 1994, was pretty darn extraordinary. How many songs from this period are still being played on the radio? How many of these albums sound as great today as when they first came out, continue to sell, and are still being discovered by younger generations? I rest my case. It may have only lasted a few years, but for a few brief and shining moments, grunge certainly shifted the direction of culture, and even fashion, and brought in an unmistakable feeling of change, just as the 60s hippie and 70s punk movements had. The original idea for doing this book came about when I was doing a Soundgarden article for Classic Rock magazine back in 2004. While interviewing the group's early producer, Jack Endino, he mentioned that almost every single article being written about grunge bands nowadays were by writers who were not from the Seattle area, yet were giving their revisionist take on what happened. Which got me thinking, what if a book was comprised of nothing but quotes from the actual people that experienced the movement firsthand, tracing it from its very beginning to its end? In other words, letting them tell the entire story as it unfolded, with only chapter intro paragraphs from yours truly. Nearly 130 interviews later, here we are. Enjoy. Greg Prato, New York, July 2008. P.S. Want to let me know what you thought of the book? Email me at gregprato@yahoo.com. Chapter 1. It was mainly isolation. 1960s through 1970s. Think that grunge began with Soundgarden, Nirvana, and Pearl Jam? Think again. Grunge's roots stretch back to the 60s and 70s, as evidenced by such garage punk bands as the Sonics, the Wailers, the Telepaths, and the Lewd, among others. Kent Morrill. The Wailers started in '58. We played teen dances mainly. There was no such thing as clubs. High school dances, armories, a famous place here called the Spanish Castle. We were all from different schools, so all the schools followed us. When we played dances, we drew like 2,000 or 3,000 kids. We were very popular, especially in the Northwest. We were influential on a lot of groups. We have quotes from the Beatles that they got some of their original ideas from the Wailers because our records were bootlegged over in England. Tall Cool One was a top 30 hit twice. Buck Ormsby. Jimi Hendrix used to come to our dances at the Spanish Castle. He wanted to jam with us, but we didn't know him that well. He really liked our guitar player. Our guitar player was an innovator. Jimmy used to say to Rich, Dangle, "If your amp goes out, I've got mine in the car." But it never did happen. He was a big Wailers fan. One of his songs, Spanish Castle Magic, was written about that place we played. I joined the Wailers in '60 after they came back from their East Coast tour. Their label was Golden Crest Records in New York. Golden Crest wanted them to stay there and make records. They decided they were going to come back. Their parents wanted them to finish high school. When they returned, they asked me if I wanted to join the band. They said Golden Crest was not happy with them, and they decided, well, maybe that's the end of the story. I said, I don't think this is